I know. So cliched. The California boy comes to New England in February, and of course, the only thing he can think to say at the opening of his podcast is, it's cold. It's really cold in here. I had to turn the heat off so I could record this show without, a blowing wind in my face, screwing up the microphone. But anyway, it's Coast to Coast Pinball. It's episode 65. Let's go. Welcome to Coast Pinball. My name is Nate Shivers. This is a podcast. It's commentary. I'm a man out of quarters. I should have socks on right now. It's cold in this hotel room. I'm in South Boston, and I had to turn the heat off, like I said, so it's cold. Long day flying with a stop. It wasn't a direct flight. I had to fly to New York and then wait and then fly to Boston. Not optimum, but we're here. I had some thoughts in the plane of I'm going to get to my car, rent my car, and I'm going to drive, and I'm going to go play some pinball. And I did not do that. I was hungry. I instead got food, came to my hotel, started taking notes for episode 65. So we're going to do that. I also dreamt up an idea on my plane today. I'm looking very much forward to the Texas Pinball Festival next month. I can't wait. Really excited to meet some listeners, to meet some famous folks in the hobby, to see some games I've never seen before, just to play a bunch of games. And I'm thinking, I've had quite a few people, a few, 4, 5, 6, somewhere in that range, tell me they're going to be there and they'd like to meet me and say hello, which is awesome. And I'm going to have some t-shirts there for sale at a special, super discounted price. And some shirts I've never had out before will debut there, which will be cool. So have a little bit of a presence. I'll be trying to grab some interviews on my super new mobile recording setup that I've been piecing together. So that's exciting. And I'm thinking, though, we should have a impromptu pop-up on-the-fly Coast-to-Coast Pinball tournament that I'll set ridiculous rules to. And it'll be just for a t-shirt or something, basically win a t-shirt, whoever wins. And we'll make it something that's, not so skill-based. Let's just put it that way. So I've got some ideas on that. So if anybody's interested in that, let me know. And maybe I'll put a list together of everyone and see what day would be the best day to do that. And we'll have some fun with that. I'm thinking Twitter will be a great tool while at the show on trying to coordinate stuff like that. I know there's some Pinside get-togethers. I don't know if I'm going to be able to be a part of that or not. Possibly. I'd like to meet some folks. But I definitely would, like to hang out and play some pinball with some of you. So it'd be awesome. Very much looking forward to that. So episode 65, we're going to jump right in because I don't know how long this is going to go. But I started thinking on my plane today, and I bought the Wi-Fi service while I was flying today. And I was reading Pinside, and I was, doing some work. And I started thinking, what are my favorite years of pinball? What years had the best just releases? And I think there's a year that maybe it's not my favorite, maybe it is my favorite, but it's one that I think is a really cool year to talk about that has a lot going on. And I think it, for some companies, might have been their best year. And for other companies, it was certainly a gold star year for them on a lot of levels. So we're going to jump right into a segment that I like to call
And the year was
1993. So let's take a little trip back to 1993. This was the year when I really started playing some pinball myself. I was 14 years old. And this is when I started going into arcades in a couple different spots where I lived, in Tucson, Arizona, and then later that year in Boise, Idaho area. And I played some pinball. I played some of the games we're going to talk about today. I played the Addams Family, which had come out the previous year in 92, and Terminator 2. Arcades were kind of booming at this point, and arcades had a great run from that 91-92 era, I would say through 97-ish, right around when pinball started dying off, so did arcades. And you had some really cool big arcades built sort of that rid the wave. I know I moved back to Arizona in 97, and this place called Game Zone, I believe, Game Zone, opened at the Tempe, Arizona Mills Mall, and it was just so big and fancy and cool. I couldn't believe it, and it was always a ghost town because arcades sort of were dying off. It was really bad timing on their part. But I love 93 because I think for some of the companies that were building games, and we had 3 major companies building games, and I won't get into the Alvin G stuff. I think that deserves a whole separate conversation, but Alvin G was releasing games at this point too, and there were new designs being made by the Alvin G company. I won't drop into that, but we have to look at 93 as we had the Bally, Midway, Williams, conglomerate really hitting their stride and releasing some great games. I think it's a fabulous year for Data East. Data East put out what I think is their best game in 1993. And Gottlieb, for that matter, had an interesting year, if nothing else. I wouldn't say it's a great year as far as releases go, but maybe I'm a little biased because one of these Gottlieb games is near and dear to my heart. So there were massive titles released in 92, the year before. I mean, if you think about Addams Family, huge, biggest selling pinball machine of all time. The Getaway High Speed 2, don't forget what a big game that was. That was really big. So you had Lawler and Ritchie with just these big, massive games in 92. You also had a really high-selling game in 92 from Data East, Lethal Weapon 3. That was a really big seller for them. They sold over 10,000 units of that. Star Wars, also for Data East. So Data East had a really big 92. And, Williams had Fishtails came out then, and that also sold a ton of units. I think that this 92-93 era is sort of the start of the golden age of modern pinball. And really for DMD machines, it was fully in effect. Great years for Data East especially too. So we're going to start off in January of 1993. The first game that was released to distributors and people buying pinball machines at that time was from the Williams Company. And it was designed by Mr. Dennis Nordman. And it was Whitewater. So Whitewater is an interesting one because you're going to hear, Whitewater came after Addams Family, so the bar had been set really, really high for what you could now do on a pinball machine. Whitewater has a theme that would never, ever get made today. Ever. I mean, it's a theme about whitewater rafting and Bigfoot. This is the game that Dennis Nordman followed up Party Zone and Dr. Dude with. Dennis Nordman came as sort of an outsider when Bally Midway was purchased by Williams, and by all accounts, when he did Elvira and the Party Monsters, that was sort of like a turning point for him after he got to the company, and they probably didn't make enough of them. And Dr. Dude and the Party Zone were really out there. So we talk about out there themes; those are about as out there as you can get. Whitewater, in comparison, looking back, it doesn't seem that crazy, but if you really look at what it is, it's kind of out of left field. It's not rock and roll. It's not shoot 'em up, bang bang. It's not sci-fi. It's not sports. It's not a movie. It's whitewater rafting with Bigfoot, and it's great. Whitewater's an interesting game in the way it's been perceived throughout its history. It's currently the number 16 game on the Pinside Top 100 and holding really steady there. Its rating, though, let's be real clear on if you look at Pinside, the way that games are both rated and ranked. They have the rankings, the top 100, 200, 300, but they also have a rating number, which is a conglomerate of all the scores you give it for each, different feature set. Its rating has really increased if you go back and look at the past 6, 7, 8 years. It's one of those games that I think people probably took for granted, partly because of the theme and because it came out in a time period with all these, A-list games. This came around in the Addams Family and all the Williams wide bodies games that were about to come out. And as far as Dennis Nordman goes, I think Scared Stiff for a lot of people was sort of his pinnacle achievement. And Whitewater has surged forward and kind of come from behind on that, because it has a uncanny ability to be both incredibly friendly to walk up to. I think people see Whitewater and it's blue and has a mountain scene to it, and the boulders. It's really fun looking. It's not dark and moody at all. It's fun, and it has Bigfoot on it who turns and laughs at you, and so people will walk right up to it, all ages, anybody. It's not intimidating. But it's a challenging game. Don't let it fool you. The shots are not easy. There is some complexity to it. There's some kind of brutal stuff, depending on the way the game's set up. I mean, you can have there's a scoop that pops the ball out, sometimes straight down the drain. I've played before. I know when I was at It Never Drains in Southern California, when I walked up to the Whitewater, somebody actually pulled me aside and said, "Hey, Nate, just FYI, you can take a dead bounce off the scoop shot." That's such a known thing with Whitewater. Whitewater's a game that you see more and more in tournaments now, because it has really, I think, a solid rule set as far as learning how to achieve high scores through skilled attack on the game. So it's interesting. If you look at the aesthetics of it. It has a lot of molded, boulders around it. It has the plastic ramps, clear plastic ramps. It has the up and down, ramp on the left side that actually goes down and then up, and then oftentimes the ball hits the glass, which was sort of a desired effect when they designed the game. Very unique. The topper on this game is probably, I think, I'll go out on a limb here and say it's the most sought after topper in all of pinball, possibly, because they've become rare, they've become expensive, they broke, they stopped working. It has an effect that I can't even really explain, and I've read whole pages on how they built this thing, and it's been very hard to replicate. But it has a cool effect. The title of the game, Whitewater, is actually in that topper with sort of a waterfall effect coming off the letters, and they don't even have the title of the game on the back glass. Look at the back glass to Whitewater. It doesn't say Whitewater on it. So it's pretty interesting. I think it's fun. It's that great mix of fast action but some comedy and humor. Dennis Nordman, obviously, when he went to design games, generally there was humor involved in what he was doing. I think that 7,000 units on this at the time, I guess that was pretty good, not amazing, but I think it's good that there were that many now, because it has become a more popular game, and these games are still out there, and the price of these games has just shot up. So I don't know. I think Whitewater is a very fun game. I think the upper playfield is neat, because it has 3 possible outcomes up at the top, and you see that upper playfield right off the skill shot, which is really truly a skill shot on Whitewater. But you have 2 shots with the flipper, or kind of like the miss shot, which runs the ball down to the right flipper. So anyway, Whitewater was the first game of 1993. February 93, Data East releases their first game of the year, and it's an interesting one. It's a game that, a couple years ago, I had not run into really ever, and then recently I've seen a few of them and have come to really love this game. And it's The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle and Friends, and it's a long-titled game, but that is what it is: The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle and Friends. 5,500 units made, and for Data East, that's pretty good. This, to me, is a great example of taking a theme that is sort of aimed, obviously, it's a children's TV show. It's a cartoon. It's a cartoon I grew up loving. And Rocky and Bullwinkle, to me, is sort of like the early precursor to things like South Park and The Simpsons. Obviously, it wasn't as dark or as inside and as adult-themed as those shows would later become, but it always had an edge to it. And it always had a level of humor that I think even adults could appreciate. Go back and watch it. It's very well done, and very simple as far as animations go, but very brilliant. So you take this sort of iconic, very stylized cartoon, and you move it to the world of pinball, and they did a fantastic job. I think the artwork on Rocky and Bullwinkle is beautiful. I think the colors they chose to highlight were perfect. I think it's a fun-looking game. I think it's a very underrated game. This game is not in the top 100. It's actually number 131. And I think there's a little bit of the Data East bias here. There are some problems with this game that people bring up over and over. I think the game's a lot harder than most people think it's going to be because they see a cartoon-themed game, Rocky and Bullwinkle. Oh, this will be easy. It's not that easy. And it has some difficult shots, and it has some scoring issues there. There's a random double your score shot that I just hate. That kills games as far as pulling them into tournament play, which isn't the be-all, end-all. But it's kind of like playing Bride of Pinbot and having that billion-point shot. It's sort of... It takes the focus off trying to have a great score when you can just double my score if I get that. That's sort of... I don't love that. I wish that wasn't there. Rocky and Bullwinkle only has the one multi-ball. It has some timer mode type things, some countdowns that I think are too short. So if you're not perfect, you can't complete them or maximize them, and that's too bad. I would say, obviously the artwork's very fun. I think the DMD is put to fantastic use on this. They do a really good job in sort of using that stylized cartoon art that they had. It translated really well into dots, and things like pulling the rabbit out of the hat just work perfectly. I love the drop targets on the right mid side of this game, where you hit the drop targets to move the toy to save Nell from the railroad. It's really cool. The theme integrates so perfectly into this. The moving back glass stuff, it has sort of like a dynamic back glass where it's a mirrored back glass and things actually move. It's really cool. And it's a game that, both was underrated and I think pretty affordable. Although there's one local to me right now, somebody's asking $2,800 or best offer. So maybe those days have slowed down a little bit on being affordable. I think that if you can get into Rocky and Bullwinkle for 15 or 16, I think it's especially a nice one. I think it's a fun game to have in a collection and challenging and a good one. And I think you'll enjoy that a lot. So it's a game that people tell me they haven't played. A lot of my friends who are into pinball, when I bring it up, they've just never seen one. So, moving to March of 1993. This is the first Gottlieb game, and this is a game that is near and dear to your host's heart here. March 93, Gottlieb released a game that they were clearly trying to cash in on the big arcade boom that we had been living through. I grew up really invested in multiplayer arcade games like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Tekken and fighting games like that. But the granddaddy of them all was Street Fighter II. So Gottlieb released a pinball machine based on Street Fighter II. In fact, I believe the official name is Street Fighter II Champion Edition. So, again, I think over 5,000 units produced, maybe 5,800 even. I think that's what my notes say. This is the first pinball machine I ever bought. And I answered an ad on Craigslist for a Street Fighter II machine. The photos looked fantastic. I mean, the playfield was in really great shape. And the back glass was perfect, if not horribly ugly. and I went and bought it. I think they were asking about $1,000 for it, which was way too much. Especially at the time I bought it. It was way too much. And I got there and I looked at it. I didn't really know a lot about the inner workings of pinball machines, but I had him pull the playfield up for me, and I was trying to, be Mr. Cool Guy looking underneath and really examining it. I kind of stepped back, and I noticed, one of the things on Street Fighter II that's actually one of its signature, aspects is it has two ramps that raise and lower. Moving ramps that have two shots. Either the ramp is down and you shoot up the ramp, or the ramp is up and you shoot underneath the ramp to a target. And I figured out, while testing the game and not having ever played the game before, that the left ramp was not moving right. It wasn't closing. It was staying open. And once I figured that out, once I had him open it, the guy just started dropping the price so much. He's like, well, I'd probably take $800 for it. And I just kind of nodded and kept looking, stayed real quiet. And he's like, I know, man, you're not going to pay me $800 for it. Could you do $600? And I looked at him for a while, and I thought, yeah, I'd probably do $600. I said I really wanted to be closer to $550. And he goes, okay, $550 and it's yours. So that's how I bought Street Fighter 2. This game gets a lot of flack because it has a very linear progression to get through it. It has a wizard mode where you beat all the Street Fighters and then you fight the grand champion. It's very hard to get to. Not a simple task. Once you do get to it, however, I think the shine comes off this game a little bit. I actually like some of the shots. Some of the shots in this game I always thought were very rewarding. There's a Gil shot. Gil's one of the fighters. It's way in the back. It's kind of like it's a little bit like the lock shot on Twilight Zone, but way back there. Tough shot to get. The right ramp has a flipper at the top that's moving on a little motor, 360 degrees. And if you're not timing it right, or if you don't have the motor off, because you can actually get it off, that flipper will oftentimes kick your ball right back down the ramp where you just came from. And it's probably the hardest shot in the game is the Chun-Li ramp, and it'll kick your ball right back towards the center drain. Pretty cool. It was a good idea. I thought there were good ideas on this game. One of the targets, you shoot a really steep ramp on the left, and then the ball goes down this kind of corkscrew metal like tube. But it's not really a tube because it's just a corkscrew, but it holds the ball and the ball goes down that way. So I thought that was pretty neat. I have a real affinity for Street Fighter 2. If you get a cleaned up one that plays well and plays quick and fast, it's kind of fun. It's not bad. The back glass is horrible. It's probably one of the worst back glasses in all of pinball. The art doesn't look anything like what it should. It's just bad. I actually bought a alternate translite a few years after I had bought this game off of eBay, and it was so much better. It just looked way cooler. I LED'd that game out. It was the first time I'd ever used LEDs, and I was trying to sell the game. Then I decided I'd put LEDs in it. I went to town. Probably the signature toy on the game, however, is the car crash toy that's underneath the playfield. So you have a clear kind of, like, think haunted house black hole type thing, a clear piece of plastic in the middle of the playfield that has a toy car in there. It's supposed to be on like a street scene, and it lights up when you get to the car crash bonus. And then you have a flipper down there, and you're trying to smash the car with a ball with the flipper. And then you win or you lose. And he tells you, you win. And you get a bonus. This breaks a lot. It was always catching on me and getting stuck, and I was having to take it apart and tear into that. That's a common thing to watch for on Street Fighter 2, is that the car works or not. But very cool, because that was like the video game. At the end of the video game, you would get these bonus rounds where you would get bonus points by destroying a car in the little, two-dimensional scrolling world of Street Fighter 2. So, very cool way they integrated that. Very retro game. And, if you look at the original marketing on Street Fighter 2, marketed at distributors and operators, was, you have to have both. You have to have the Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition upright arcade game, and now you have to have the pinball machine next to it. And that probably worked pretty well for some people. So that was Gottlieb's first contribution to 1993. In April, I think one of the most interesting games of 1993 was released. And it was released another Williams game. And so we had Whitewater come out in January from Williams. And I think some of you know what's coming really soon in 93 from Williams. And we know what came in 92 when you look back at Fishtails and Addams Family and some others. So I think this is a weird one. You have the Barry Orsler designed Bram Stoker's Dracula. I don't know what exactly the timeline and how their rules were internally at Bally Williams at the time, but I was under the impression that a licensed theme in that era would bear the Bally logo, and an original theme, like, Fishtails, Medieval Madness, Whitewater, would bear the Williams logo. Well, Bram Stoker's Dracula, clearly a licensed theme based off the movie, bears the Williams logo. And I don't know exactly why. I'm kind of throwing that out there, hoping somebody can tell me. So this is an interesting one, because this game, at first glance, does not have a lot going on. There's not tons and tons of toys and ramps and things. They clearly put a lot of the design money on Bram Stoker's Dracula into one of the coolest tricks in all of pinball, and that's the missed multi-ball. And I know I did an episode way back some point last year on a Bram Stoker's Dracula that I found in, I want to say Augusta, Maine. Might have been Bangor, but I think it was Augusta. And I did an episode on it. And it is, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go find a video of this. But basically, you start this multi-ball, and a ball locks on a magnet, and the magnet takes the ball across the center of the playfield diagonally from one side to the other. It basically walks it along the playfield, and you try and pick the ball off of that with another ball. It's very, very cool. Little gimmicky, maybe, once you kind of know it and time it, it's simple, but it's still, I mean, what like a crowd pleaser to see that happen. I just think it's incredibly neat, but there's a lot that goes into making that missed multi-ball happen. If you open up one of these games and look, there's a bunch. They spent a lot of money to get that happening. So my problem with Dracula is not so much that there aren't a ton of toys or anything like that. It feels like a game that might have been built 3 years prior, or it feels like maybe a Data East game, which I hate to say. It's really heavy on the left ramp shot and the left, I guess it's a scoop shot to the right of the left ramp, which starts the modes. Those two shots are that's like most of the game. In fact, there's really a weird shot on the right with a drop target that's in the way, and when you get rid of the drop target and you get video mode lit, this little right scoop shot starts video mode, and that's like all it's for. It's sort of another thing where I don't know if they needed to go to all this design to do a moving drop target, to open a scoop shot, to start this video mode. That's not that integral in the game. I don't know. I think that probably integrating the theme and trying to do something creative with the design and all that sort of, to me, hurts it a little bit. The rule set's not that deep at all, and I think the gist of this game is always trying to get the modes stacked, and it's a hard game, not an easy game by any means. I'm not saying it's simple or easy. It's fairly hard, and I think that was probably to compensate for just kind of the lack of stuff going on, for lack of a better term. I don't love the artwork on this game. I don't like the backglass. I don't like the odd blue main color. It's never appealed to me. You see the lightning bolt inserts on this game that we saw in Addams Family, and we'd see again, which I think that's kind of cool, actually. Like, there's a group of lightning bolt inserts. I don't know. I guess I'm in the minority because this game is ranked number 36 on the Pinside Top 100. And that's higher than I would have ever thought, honestly. Like, quite a bit higher. It's been as high as number 20 at one point. So, what's that mean? Is it the theme? Do people really like the missed multi-ball trick? I'm not sure. I like the game. I don't love the game. They built 6,800 of them. I don't know. You tell me. Bram Stoker's Dracula. Am I missing something here? I think maybe that this game probably was quite the deal for a long time, and you could get a really nice deal on it. And that era of Williams games have just all sort of gone up, both in prestige and value. It has 3 multi-balls on it, so there's fun things to do, but other than that, kind of a basic layout. But still an interesting game, nonetheless. So here's why, to me, it when you go from Dracula to the next game, I guess Dracula just doesn't impress me a lot. That's probably the best thing I say, is it doesn't really impress me a lot. On lots of levels, on rules, on toys, on shots, on all these things. Because in April of 1993, Bally Williams Midway released Twilight Zone. So I did a whole episode on Twilight Zone, episode 50 of Coast to Coast Pinball. If you want to know a lot of detail about Twilight Zone, and you've apparently not ever read stuff about pinball, because Twilight Zone must be the most talked about, written about, covered pinball machine in the history of this hobby. But if you need to hear more about it, you've not heard episode 50 of Coast to Coast Pinball, I encourage you to go listen. I had a lot of fun with that. I remember literally I recorded most of that episode standing up in front of the game, just excited. This is the Pat Lawler masterpiece where he was basically handed the checkbook after the success of Addams Family, and they said, go do whatever you want to do. And he did. And he built a game that is still captivating people's imaginations now. It's the most modded game of all time, hands down. I know the guys over at This Old Pinball, Clay and his crew, did an entire video on fixing up Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone is sort of the ultimate home collector game. It's the game so many people reference when they think back to what was amazing back in the early 90s for pinball and arcades. Twilight Zone. Addams Family too, but I think Addams Family probably stayed on location longer because it was a better location game than Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone was really hard to understand. It didn't do a great job of telling you all the things that you should be doing. It was sort of abstract. You hit these two ramp shots to light the gumball shot, and you shoot that, and then this white ball comes. It was just, if you don't know, it was hard to figure it out. Addams Family just sort of stayed on location a long time, and it earned more. It always earned better than Twilight Zone by all accounts. So Twilight Zone sort of became the pinball geeks, I don't know, lust machine. It's the one everyone wanted. It was, I used to hear people talk about it all the time, and they would say it's the most complex pinball machine ever made. And that's probably not true now with Wizard of Oz. I guess. Maybe it still is. I don't know. And a lot of people decided that they had to have a Twilight Zone. I still meet people who say Twilight Zone is A, their favorite game, and B, the game they'll never get rid of. I'm that way. It's my favorite game, and it's a game I'll never get rid of. Because when I am bored, I can always go hit that start button and hear Rod Serling tell me that, I am entering, the door is the key to imagination and all that great stuff. Amazing theme, amazing gameplay. It's not a flow game. It's not a game you just start, hitting loops and hitting shots. There's some thought behind it, but it's magic, absolute magic. And this was 1993. It's the number 2 game on the Pinside Top 100, and there's 15,235 of them built. And I think a lot of those are still out there, and they're expensive. It kind of blows me away a little bit because when you look at some of the games that only had runs of 3,000 or 4,000, and some of those games sell for $5,000 to $10,000. Well, Twilight Zone had 15,000 units built, and it's a $5,000 game. You can get them for a little bit under, depending on condition, but you can also pay a lot more for a Twilight Zone. And like I said, with all the mods that are available, you could mod this thing absolutely to death. And when I first got it, I really tried not to put LEDs in it. I wanted to leave it very, very pristine. But it's a game that really does great with LEDs. So, I was at the Silver Ball Museum a couple weeks ago, as you know, if you've been listening. I was playing Scared Stiff, and I watched a couple, and they kind of just squeezed by me because there was a game right behind me, so I was kind of making a little choke point with my pushed back pinball stance. So they squeezed by me, and I heard their whole conversation. They were talking about, what game do you want to play first? They just walked in, and she goes, don't they have a Twilight Zone? And he goes, no, I don't think they have a Twilight Zone. As they're standing in front of Twilight Zone, she goes, no, it's right here, it's Twilight Zone. And he just turns and looks and goes, oh, you're right. This is the best ever. And they stood there kind of staring at Twilight Zone, in awe of Twilight Zone. And then they played it. And they probably played that game, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 times. 150 games in the room, and they just kept playing Twilight Zone. So I think that's what you have to look at. So when I compare Twilight Zone to Bram Stoker's Dracula, knowing they both came from the same company, out of the same factory, it's a little bit of a head scratcher to me. different designers, obviously, different budgets, I'm sure, but I think that's why I have a hard time thinking Bram Stoker Dracula top 20 game. It's just not to me. Not really, it's number 36. That's fine. To me, it's not really a top 50 game. April of 93 proved to be a pretty big month as far as units. And obviously it took them more than just that month to build all these units. But Data East released their second game of 93 in April. And it's the game when people kind of bag on Data East. Some people will argue, no, man, they built Guns N' Roses. They built this wide-body, awesome game with all this stuff going on, and that's fine. But to me, the game that came out in April of 93 is the one that I think of, and is always my argument for, no, Data East really had some great games, and they pushed the ball down the road. And this is a game that I feel is just destined to be an all-time great once we've sort of settled down with the rankings, especially if you look back and view the company history. And this is the game Jurassic Park. So Jurassic Park, obviously based off the movies that were highly, highly popular and successful. And so to me, it's the height of Data East. It's the best they did. It's awesome. It has one of the coolest toys, a great set of rules, a great look, some awesome shots, tons of targets. There's a lot going on in this game. They built 9,000 of these. It's currently rated number 61 on the Pinside Top 100. I think that's way, way too low. It should be higher. I think this could flip with Dracula myself. I think there's a little Data East bias going on this one. This game has been in the past few years, past 5 or 6 years, I believe it has been all the way to the number 20th spot on Pinside. So it has at times rated really high. It's ranked really high. Its rating is actually high and goes up. It actually does very well. The design team on this is Joe Kamenkow, John Borg, and Ed, and I never know how to pronounce his name, Ed Sebula. So basically you have these two long-time designers with Joe Kamenkow and Ed Sebula, who had designed tons of Data East, and even, I think, a lot of game plan titles. And then you have John Borg, who I'm guessing was sort of the young guy at the company. He had been there not long when they did this game, and then John obviously went on to be one of the main guys for Stern for all those years, and still today, obviously. So, it's to me, it's the top of the food chain, quote unquote. Get it? See what I did there? Dinosaurs, T-Rex, top of the food chain. As far as Data East games go. So the T-Rex toy eats your ball. I think we all need to just get that out of the way right now. You shoot the shot, you shoot the saucer shot, and T-Rex eats your darn pinball. It's awesome. It's cool. It's really neat. I loved it when I was, a teenager seeing it for the first time, and I still love it now. But I actually think one of my favorite parts of Jurassic Park, the pinball machine, is the raptor pit, which is sort of like this narrow, I don't even know how you describe it, like a vertical, like almost vertical shot that when the ball crosses over the target there, it kicks the ball straight back down at your flippers. Really, really fast. I think that's so awesome. One of the most random targets to shoot at in all of pinball, mosquito fossilized in amber. Okay, so we have a shot where we're shooting a mosquito that's fossilized in amber. Yeah. But quirky and cool, right? And I believe the flyer for this game, and I should look it up, the flyer actually makes mention of that target and says something to the effect of, the blood that mosquito was, getting back then isn't around anymore, something cheesy like that. So this is a mosquito that was feasting on dinosaurs, apparently, I guess. This had a gun trigger type plunger with a button on the auto plunger, and when you hit that button, you actually were awarded, it was sort of like a rocket launcher thing where you got all the lit target values at once. And that was an ode to a video game, Asteroid maybe? See, I'm bad. See, I don't know my video games that well. But that was sort of an ode to that, which was very cool. Jurassic Park's a game that I think's a good tournament game. I think there's a lot going on here. There's lots of shots, lots of little things that you kind of bump into on accident sometimes. You can absolutely score bigger with that, button on the gun plunger, as I was talking about. That can really help you. I would know your rules if you're going to play Jurassic Park. But I think the key point here is that in April you had Twilight Zone and Jurassic Park, two big licenses and two big selling pinball machines both come out. And I think both hold up very, very well. Jurassic Park is one of those games that it's like if somebody wants to buy a DMD game with some cool toys but doesn't want to spend tons and tons and tons of money, Jurassic Park's a great game. You can find these games for in the $2,000 range. So I think it's a really cool one. There's quite a few of them out there. It rates really high. Its ratings are high, but its ranking is down to 61. So I think this game will probably get rediscovered at some point. It'll go through like a resurgence in popularity. I wouldn't doubt that at all. So check out a Jurassic Park. That is where we're going to leave off with, and the year was 1993. We will resume that later this week. I hope to get out and play some pinball this week. I have a very busy week here in the New England area. I'm going to be all through Massachusetts and Connecticut and New Hampshire. I know that Pop Bumpers is a new place that opened not far from where I'm staying tonight, actually, and I had considered running down there tonight and checking it out. I think I talked about it briefly in an episode a little while back. But it's sort of the idea of doing old school, early solid state, and late model EMs on like kind of a small level. This husband and wife team have put together. And I've gotten a couple reports from people who said the hours have been a little sketchy there, and I don't think they're open super late. I'm thinking about maybe for the weekend checking it out. That's my goal. See what they got going on there. That's down in I think the Quincy Weymouth area of Massachusetts. So I'm thinking about that. I definitely want to go by Lanes and Games in Cambridge. I really want to get up to Pelham, to the Pinball Wizard. And there's a couple other smaller, spots that if I can, I want to stop by and give you a little reporting on. So that's what I got going on. I feel like we're going to have some news break on a couple fronts here in the next couple weeks. I think there's going to be some really fun stuff hitting. I have been talking and chatting with some folks designing one of the new, do I use the word boutique or small build games, about some of the details of what they are doing, and I've kind of sent a little question sample to those guys, and hopefully they'll be answering back, so I'll have some stuff to report there, hopefully. I'm excited about that. Really looking forward to Texas. Really looking forward to the Midwest Gaming Classic. I've had some emails on that as well, and we'll talk more about that as we get, kind of past Texas, even though there's only a couple weeks after that. So, on the T-shirt front, nobody send me any money right now. I'm gone for a week. Everyone who has sent me money, you're all set. I have your shirts, but I ran out of some sizes in Midnight. I had a run on a couple sizes in that Midnight color, so I have some more shirts that are there now, my dark gray shirts, and I have another shirt already ordered that was kind of earmarked for Texas. So I will have a rundown when I get back to California on what shirts are available, but hold off on sending me any money until I get back, because I don't want you to buy something that I don't have in stock. Other than that, I wish you all the best out there. I hope you guys are playing pinball on location. Take your friends. Take someone who hasn't played before and just tell them you want to see if they're into it or not. And if you have anybody who is into pinball on any level, show them the podcast. Get them listening to Coast to Coast. I'd really appreciate it. Email me anytime you like, coast2coastpinball@gmail.com. Our website's coast2coastpinball.com. You can always find me on Facebook and Twitter and Pinside and all that great stuff. Until we speak again, take care.
And now...
Hey, Rocky! Watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat!
Wait, haven't we seen this trick like a million times?
See? Nothing up my sleeve.
Actually, I see a bear up your sleeve, sir.
Presto! Wrong hat.
And now it's time to meet Mr. Peabody.
I never liked Mr. Peabody, so now it's time to meet Mr. Nate, this guy.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve.
Actually, no, I do see something up your sleeve. In fact, it sort of looks like an ex-girlfriend of mine.
Presto!
Wrong hat.
I take a 7.5.
Indeed, it was an ex-girlfriend of mine.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Yeah, it's me again, Mr. Nate. Something we'd really like. What we'd really like is for you not to build LE and premium games that have a bunch of upgrades that make me feel like crap when I buy the Pro version, which is the one I can afford. Give me all the features. Thank you. Thank you.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Hey, Rocky, why do you hang out with this guy? You're a squirrel hanging out with a moose named Bullwinkle, who wants to keep doing the same dumb trick over and over and over again. And you just act like it's no big deal.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve.
Truthfully, this guy has more up his sleeve than that company out of Texas with the checkerboard floor has overpriced pinball machines. Know what I mean? Get it? Get it?
Presto! No doubt about it. I gotta get another hat.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.